Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome all of you back to Ohio Exopolitics. I'm your host, Mark Snyder, and we're going to be studying interesting passages from The Way to Live, The Psyche, The Might of Thoughts, and some interesting things I pulled up in the contact reports. The first thing I wanted to talk about today is the wrong form of love. The Meyer material talks about an effective love, which is based on reverence, but there is also a wrong form of love which most human beings have today. It says, unfortunately, the human being often only searches for love out of anxiety or to find calmness, pleasure, or gratification. However, this is the wrong way, and a wrong form of love which is only artificially created in order to fulfill emotional or lustful wishes. In this form of love, it is better for the human being if she covers the nakedness of his or her greed and searches for the true value of love in order to find a way out of the world without seasons, which only conveys monotony, and in which he or she laughs without being able to enjoy it, and in which he or she cries without shedding tears, which would bring him or her a release. True love is a concentrated form of the fine spiritual perception and is not built on emotions. Well, Edward Albert Meyer is a man who lives in Switzerland. He's 81 years old, and he's written books like this, which I'm reading from today, which is called The Way to Live, on page 58. And he's teaching us about the wrong form of love here, and saying to us that love is really a fine spiritual perception and it's not built on emotions. Well, if you remember from the Might of Thoughts book, emotions spring up in ways that are out of control, but feelings come from the emotions, and the feelings grow, and they're based on thinking. And love is a form of fine spiritual perception. And when we've been studying love, we've been talking about it in terms of the radiating love of creation, and that creation radiates love, and that the incredible splendor of nature is the visible expression of the love of creation. And let me read something that comes from the Talmud of Emmanuel, which this will sound very much like a blasphemy if you're from the Christian world here. And we could, maybe we'll discuss a little bit more about the Talmud. It says here, not until the time of space-traveling machines will the truth break through and gradually shake the false teaching that you are the Son of God or creation. According to Meyer material, the person named Jesus didn't really live during that time. There was no letter J in the ancient world. And not in the Hebrew, not in the Greek, not in the Aramaic. So he was either called Yeshua or Iesus. If you look in the 1611 version of the King James Bible, this individual is called Iesus or Iesvs. So the whole teaching around the Bible, according to Meyer information, has been an intentional deception that has put us down into a rabbit hole where we're stuck in our understanding of the universe. Let me continue here on in the Talmud. It says, however, this will be the time when we celestial sons begin to reveal ourselves anew to the human races. Now, these are human beings too. These are higher evolved human beings than us. And this is the older translation of the Talmud where words like celestial sons are used. Anyway, and it says, since they will have become knowing, and their acquired power threatens the structure of the heavens, which is interesting. That we are going to be dangerous once we start traveling out there. And then it continues here. Thus they spoke, the celestial sons between the north and the west, before they took Emmanuel in the metallic light back to Israel, to the land of Galilee. So he traveled in a ship here. It says, when Emmanuel heard that John the Baptist had been imprisoned, he left the town of Nazareth and came and lived in Capernaum, which lies on the sea in the land of Zebulun and Naphtali. From that time, Emmanuel began to preach, saying, repent and turn to the truth and knowledge, because they alone will bring you life. Let me continue here, and then I'll try to connect it back to what we were saying earlier. Now, when Emmanuel went by the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon, who was called Peter, and Andrew, his brother, casting their nets into the sea, because they were fishermen. And he said to them, follow me, and I will teach you knowledge and make you fishers of men. Immediately they left their nets and followed him. As he went on further, he saw two other brothers, Jacob the son of Zebedee, John his brother in the boat with Zebedee their father, mending their nets, and he called to them. Immediately they left the boat and followed him. Emmanuel went about in the whole land of Galilee, teaching in their synagogues, preaching the knowledge of the Spirit, and healing all diseases and infirmities. The news of him spread over the whole land of Syria, and they brought to him all the sick, demoniacs, sleepwalkers, paralytics, and various diseases, and made them well. And many people followed him from Galilee, from Decapolis, Jerusalem, Judea, beyond the Jordan. And let me read just a little bit of the Sermon on the Mount, and I'll get back to false love and more of what we're talking about today here. It said, when Emmanuel saw the people following him, he went up a hill and sat down. And his disciples came to him, saying, and he taught them, blessed are those who are rich in spirit and recognize the truth, for life will be theirs. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall thus recognize truth and be comforted. Blessed are the spiritually balanced, for they shall possess knowledge. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for truth and knowledge, for they will be satisfied. Blessed are those who live according to the laws of nature, for they will live according to the plan of creation. You notice he didn't say the plan of God, and he said the laws of nature. Well, one of the laws of nature is this law of love, this true love based on reverence and based on a very stable kind of thing. You know, I forgot to bring the chat room up. Let me do that right now while I'm thinking of it. So, creation, the universal consciousness, radiates love. And love is a source of fine spiritual perception. It's not built on emotions. Our whole world is always talking about the emotional love, the artificial love, the love that is not dependable, not stable. So we're basing our relationships on these ideas which eventually crumble over time. So there are so many people that are disappointed in their relationships because of this. Let me continue here about love. And this is True Love, page 58, my version of the Might of Thoughts book. It says, because truthfully, it is fine spiritual perception itself. Therefore, love itself is only power, and it never takes anything which would not be of itself. True love does not allow itself to be possessed. Therefore, the love also does not possess, because it is the purest fine spiritual perception and is sufficient in itself. Love is not located in the heart, and it is not the power of a god. Rather, it is the purest fine spiritual perception of the spirit and of the consciousness of the human being who creates it in him or herself by means of fine spiritual perception. The truthfully love in the form of the fine spiritual perception is all-embracing, is never fickle, and is absolutely indestructible. It is creational natural, and it cannot be impaired by any kind of things, bad habits, and negative or evil powers. Thus, the course of truly love is not to be directed, while, however, as the creationally, naturally highest factor of all life and of logic, directs the human being. So love is not directed, but love directs the human being. And you notice it says here that love is never fickle, and it's absolutely indestructible. So if you're in a relationship with someone and they're very fickle, it's not love that they're feeling. Whenever people have relationships with each other, with animals or anything, and it's fickle, it's changing all the time. I love them today, I don't love them tomorrow. This is not the true love that the Meyer material is talking about. And true love, this creational natural love, cannot be impaired by any kinds of things, bad habits and negative or evil powers. Thus, the truth, the course of true love is not to be directed, while it, however, as the creationally naturally highest factor of life, it directs the human being in dignity. So love directs us. True love directs us. We don't direct true love. And notice it said here that it is the highest factor of all. And what does it say in Love Letter 27? Love is the highest principle in all creation. And through it, everything exists in absolute logic. So love is the highest principle in all creation. And it has a logic. So let me also read here. While it, however, as the creationally naturally highest factor of all life and of logic, it directs the human being in the course of his life. So if you have this true creational natural love, if you have experience Empfindungen, which is this radiating love of creation, you will start to be directed by love. And this is not the case with false love, which results from emotions and drives, because this artificial love then is steered by the human being. So if you're experiencing artificial love, you will be steering it. Whereas truly, and it will be very unstable. So with artificial love, it's very romantic. You're trying to steer it, and it's unstable. It's very fickle. True love is stable, very lasting. So artificial love is steered by the human being, and according to the emotions and the libido, it's steered. So the false love indeed always goes according to the emotional and libidoness libido. I'm not even going to try that right now, but it's the libido. It's the drive, the sex drive. True love has no wishes at all. Rather, only the need to fulfill itself. So true love is kind of neutral a lot of times, in many ways. Only the human being has wishes that he or she is always willing to fulfill. And as he or she wants to fulfill these, may he or she do this in true love. Thus, her main wish, or his main wish, should be that he or she becomes free of the burden of the unknowledge and of the unharmony. So if you're in an unharmonious state, that disharmony, you want to be free from that. And that's what this whole teaching is all about. That he or she may melt like the cold glacial ice through the glow of the sun, and become a rushing brook which splashing pours down to the valley and sings its incomparable melody to then wind through the country and flow into the ocean to become one with it in loving connectedness. That's a beautiful analogy. The human being may direct his or her wishes at becoming the same as the melting ice and the splashing brook, which in love unite with the ocean and form a oneness with it. May the wishes of the human being go there so that they can capture and taste the pain of the innermost connectedness and tenderness of love, to be wounded by their own understanding of the love, and to joyfully bear the profound pain of the love. So there's a false love, and I think again he's talking about the two kinds of love. The one love, which is the false love, and the false love has pain associated with it. And the true love, which is very stable, which is very dependable. And let me continue here. Every morning, may the human being greet the new day with inspired love, and in the waking, give love the appropriate thanks and promise that he or she will daily contemplate the delight of true love. I am going to play our little songbird clip here for just a moment, take a little break, and be right back. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the birds chirping there for a minute. I had to take a little break, a short break. So let's get back to the idea of true love versus false love. This is beautiful. This is page 60, by the way, in my Way to Live book. You may have a different version of it. So it may not be on page 60 for you, but it says here, every morning may the human being greet the new day with inspired love, and in waking give the life the appropriate thanks, and promise that he or she will contemplate the delight of the true love, and will never rest in creating the truthfully love in him/herself. And may the human being return home every evening, satisfied by the fulfilling of his or her day's work, full of gratitude and love. And may the human being then go to sleep with words of the love on his lips for the almightiness of the creation. So it's rightful to love creation. And it's truthfully all-embracing love. And this is, the Meyer material says there is no God, there is no Heavenly Father up there. There's this spiritual energy, this super intelligence with no personality that radiates love, that's evolving. Let me continue here a little bit. The human being should not ever let his or her grief fall out of the good human nature in the painful excess. Otherwise, he or she destroys him or herself and his or her environment. So focus on love, the love of creation, and do not let your thoughts get carried away with things like grief. I wanted to talk more about love. There is a very interesting contact report, and I believe it's contact report 18. And I'll read a little bit of contact report 18. It says, therefore, it is very important to know as much as possible about the nature of creation and ascertain it so that the word becomes meaningful, raises one inwardly, and leaves an impression as soon as it is heard. Experience reveals that creation is infinite beauty, a beauty above all beauty, boundless, intensive happiness without end, wisdom, knowledge, ability, truth, and absolute certainty. Once that is recognized by the human being, then he instantly traces every one of his joys back to its origin, the infinite joy of creation. Whenever he sees something beautiful, be it a flower, an animal, or a human being, or anything else, he instantly brings it into association with the infinite beauty of creation itself. Wherever the human being sees cognition reach expression, in this or any form, in an impressive and exalted manner, he knows that it has its roots in the endless cognition, which is creation. Wherever life stirs, be it even in just the tiniest being, in a creature, such as, for example, the microbe, there behind this life he glimpses the infinite, the eternal, and the creational. From that, he attempts to deepen and expand his understanding and feeling by contemplating the nature of the creational and its inseparable presence at any time and in any space, in many kinds of ways, in daily life and experience. Creation exists in every human being as a fragment of itself. So your spirit form is a tailstock, a fragment of creation. Your spirit form resides in the center of the middle brain in the superior colliculus. It comes in 21 days after the sperm fertilizes the egg and it sends its energy throughout the whole body, causes the heart to beat. So you have a little fragment of creation in yourself, and you should listen to its impulses. It's going to give you impulses. If you don't listen to the impulses of creation, you get alienated from yourself, and you start to literally kind of despise yourself. You dislike yourself. Let me continue here. Once the notion of creation and what it is, once this gets deeply penetrating into the human being and it becomes his experience, then any fear and any doubt in him will disappear. Once he knows that creation is all-knowing and almighty, then he gains inner peace and security and is immune from stupid thoughts and wrong feelings. Repeated contemplation about the ever-present, the truth, wisdom, and the ability and the knowledge of creation as constantly eternal as dignity and value allows the word and the designation of creation to become something very meaningful to the human being, something which evokes transformations in the feelings and transformations in the manner of thinking. Now, Edward Albert Meyer has a very ancient spirit form. It's about 9.6 billion years old. One of its incarnations was an individual named Emmanuel. And Emmanuel taught about creation. He much of what is in the New Testament has been twisted and distorted around according to Meyer information. Let me read here something that Emmanuel said. He says, "Truly I say to you, until the heavens and the earth vanish, neither an iota nor a dot of the law of creation and the law of nature will vanish until all has been fulfilled." You notice he's talking about the law of creation. Here's another thing that Emmanuel said about creation. "However, I say to you, exercise the justice according to the natural law of creation, so that the judgment is found in logic." And creation and logic always go hand in hand, especially the love of creation. Love is the highest principle in all creation, and through it, everything exists in absolute logic. Guilty are all who do not act in self-defense or according to the prescribed judgment of the law if they kill or engage in evil speech and actions. Justice, according to the natural law of creation alone, elevates a verdict into logic. So, Emmanuel talked much about creation and the laws of creation. For example, here he said, "But I say to you, exercise justice according to the natural law of creation, so that you find the verdict in logic." So again and again, Emmanuel talks about creation, and he talks about the laws of creation. "However, I say to you, exercise love and understanding according to the natural law of creation." Again, so that in logic you find the right behavior and feeling. So again, whenever we're talking about love, we're talking about logic. You should be wise and learn knowledge, because you will become perfect in spirit like creation, which conceived you. And what that means is that fragment of creation within you is going to be impulsing you all the time, and you'll be following its impulses. You'll be following the love. Remember, we talked about a little bit before how true love is kind of a guide. Let me see if I don't even know if I can find that. Let me see if I can find that. Maybe I won't be able. Let me read this, though. "Every morning may the human being greet the new day with inspired love, and in the waking, give life the appropriate thanks and promise that he or she will daily contemplate the delight of the true love, and never rest in creating truthfully love in himself, and may the human being return home every evening satisfied by the fulfilling of his or her day's work, full of gratitude and love. And may the human being go to sleep with words of love on his or her lips for the almightiness of creation and the embracing of love. Anyway, I'm sure we read this, that love is kind of a guide. It guides, true love is a guide for you. And the wrong form of love, which is artificially created in order to fill emotions and lustful wishes, is a different kind of love. So, okay. Now let me read it. I found it. It says here, false love, which results from emotions and drives, because this artificial love, which is steered by the human being, is directable, indeed always according to the emotional and libido, the libido's wishes, where true love has no wishes at all, rather only the need to fulfill itself. Only the human being has wishes that he or she is always willing to fulfill. As he or she wants to fulfill these, may he or she do this in true love. Thus, his or her main wish should be that he or she becomes free of the burden of the unknowledge and of the disharmony. So if you're guided by love, you will have a harmony within you. If you're focused on false love, you will be guiding that love, and that love will be to fulfill your lusts and to fulfill your desires. So let's get back to Contact Report 18. It says, the more his intelligence is effective in this direction, the more it gains radiating light, the more powerful his personality becomes, and the more blessed his entire life and work is. So the knowledge of creation will make your whole life blessed. It will bless your whole life. Again and again, the human being who lives in the clarity of consciousness produces in himself anew the strong spiritual, fine, sensitive feeling that the creational is far more real than that which his body feels. This spiritual, fine, sensitive feeling incessantly rules a human being who lives for the spirit. The creational takes possession of the consciousness, whereby his way of thinking is full of peace, strength, joy, knowledge, wisdom, truth, and hope. All the measures which the normal human being grasps in his material intellectual thinking in order to attain peace, happiness, and strength always show themselves as deceitful. So let me go back over this. I remember reading this years ago, that we have this material intellectual thinking. You know, we have this material consciousness, right? It's who we are in this lifetime. It's relatively young compared to our spirit form, which is millions of years old. And it can be deceitful. If you live according to the spirit, your spirit form, you will be pulsed with the dynamic power of creation. The human being who lives for spirit is very dynamic in all things. He incessantly attempts to reach his fulfillment as quickly as possible. Therefore, as long as he lives, he uses the time with all energy available to him for devoting himself to creational ability. So you will become more and more efficient with your time. as you are guided in love through the spirit form. He will never allow this undertaking to be lost. Everything possible can happen in the course of time. Yet his desire for the creational will never cease in him. And this is what happens as we move through these 7 evolutionary steps that all human beings go through. He can encounter hindrances. He can suddenly have no sense and taste anymore for the necessary material things. So you'll have all kinds of changes in your material desires and all this. Yet he never loses the taste and the sense for creation, because he knows that the creation embodies true being. And this is something I don't understand yet. And I remember the guy from Figure Canada that does the wonderful YouTube videos, Michael Uderbrook, talking and reading one of Billy's writings that talks about the being of creation and what the true being is all. Only those human beings who fight hard for consciousness, goods, and progress, and spiritual goods and progress, and for knowledge, truth, logic, wisdom, and love, harvest the spirit and the consciousness enormous fruits. These do not fall simply into your lap. So you're going to have to work. You're going to have to strive. For your evolution of your consciousness. And I was going to read a little bit more that Emmanuel talks about. Some of the things that I've highlighted. Be aware also that through this sacred thing, the almighty power of the Spirit always dwells within yourself. Therefore pray as one who knows, and thus pray as follows. My spirit, you are omnipotent. Notice he's not praying to some Holy Spirit. His material consciousness is praying or talking to his spirit, which is a fragment of the universal consciousness. Your name is holy. Let your kingdom incarnate itself in me. Let your power unfold itself within me, on earth and in the heavens. Give me today my daily bread, so that I may know gratitude and truth, and lead me not into temptation and confusion, but deliver me from error. For yours is the kingdom within me, and the power and the knowledge forever. When you pray to your spirit, it will respond to your request. Trust, knowledge, and you will receive. So when we pray, we're not praying to some God, some Heavenly Father. We're praying to the Spirit, our spirit, the fragment of the universal consciousness. However, if you believe in the false teachings that the power and the Spirit do not dwell within you, then you will be without knowledge and you will live in spiritual property. So the power is within you. You are the master of your own destiny. You are the forger of your own fortune. You are the creator of your own good luck. It is the nature of the thoughts that every conceivable thing can be brought to fruition. Your good thoughts produce good feelings produce good habits create good circumstances in your life. You are the master of your own destiny. However, if you believe in the false teachings that the power and the Spirit do not dwell within you, the power and the Spirit are in you. But if you don't believe that, you're going to be in spiritual poverty. Through you will also receive now and then what you and your false belief requests from misused sacred things like idols and gods, you will be receiving only out of your strong false belief without knowledge of the real truth. Truly I say to you, blessed are those who serve the actual truth and knowledge, because only they receive in honesty. And he goes on here, about fasting and whatnot. So anyway, this is true love versus false love that we've been talking about. And I've been reading also from Contact Report 18, which talks about the material consciousness a little bit here. For him, the future already exists in the present, so that everything must be done here and now in order to achieve the highest spiritual state and the highest state of the consciousness. We're talking about the person again that's living in love, that is listening to the impulses of his spirit form. He does not know the fear of the future, nor fear about the future, because they only exist in a material, intellectual way of thinking. So there's a way of thinking where you're dominated by the material consciousness, but never in spiritual intellectual thinking, which the future is as the present itself. Thereby the human being who lives in accord with his spirit can and may solve the problems of tomorrow and the next day already here and now and steer them along the desired path. To think for and with the spirit brings only advantages to every life form. So when we're thinking, we want to think in the spiritual intellectual thinking. We're being impulsed by our spirit form. We're being impulsed by our innermost creational personality. It's very interesting that when you do this, you start to solve the problems of tomorrow, and you steer yourself down the right path. Therefore, the human being should raise himself more and more through intensive seeking and searching into the state of spiritual thinking and into the knowledge about creational truth and wisdom. He should again and again create in himself the strong spiritual, fine sensitive feeling, empfinden in the German, that something is there, namely the truth of creation, which gives him immeasurable power and frees him from unreal assumptions. Remember the tremendous power of our thoughts. Every conceivable thing can be brought to fruition by your thoughts. The human should always again and again create within himself the strong spiritual, fine sensitive feeling that he is in the sea of creational light, its wisdom, its knowledge of truth, logic and love. Remember, logic and love always go together, which alone entirely enables the being of life for him. There's the thing I am hopefully someday will understand a little better, what this being is all about, the being of creation, the being of life. The joy of the human being who is turned towards creation exists as a result of attesting to his veneration for the creation and the creational and the creation, in that he accepts the almighty will and the creational laws and makes the absolute certainty of these laws his own destiny and utilizes them into good effect. I think now I want to jump back to the Way to Live book and the Might of Thoughts. And one of the down-to-earth practical things that the Meyer material seems to keep emphasizing is these principles about fulfilling your duty to yourself. And we have this duty for ourselves. In other words, we have to do things for our health, for the care of our body. We need to challenge our body and our mind. We also do not self-chastise ourselves. We should have no self-abuse, no feelings of inferiority. We should have no bitterness. And we should not devote ourselves to our passions, to our lusts, to our addictions. we're told to use our intelligence, our rational logic. We must not oppress ourselves through self-chastisement or self-abuse. And this is talked about on page, I think it's page 30. It says here, thus he disregards his or her conscience and prefers to run away to where the inner and the well-meaning voice of his or her consciousness is shouted down by the roar and the tumult. So when you're not listening to creational impulses, you're pulled to the spectacular, the wild. Let me continue here. It says, constantly guard yourself against neglecting or even disregarding or disowning your best and truest and closest friend. Your closest friend is yourself. And a lot of people that, are running to the wild, noisy dance place or running to whatever, maybe it's a big sporting event where there's lots of noise and chaos. They've really left their best friend, which is their self. Therefore, never neglect yourself and esteem your own ownership, your own friendship to yourself. Be caring, open, and honest towards your inner friend, to yourself and to your own eye. Constantly concern yourself with never turning your back on yourself. You've got to be your best friend. And thus neither on your inner friend, who you certainly always need, your spirit form, your inner friend. Remember the one you were praying to, the one Emmanuel told us to pray to. That's your fragment of the universal consciousness. Pay heed that this friend does not just turn away from you when you are in dire need of him or her. Therefore, be constantly on guard, because again and again in the life, there arise situations and moments which quite especially require of you that you remain true to yourself, to your inner friend. Your inner friend is your spirit form. Your inner friend is your innermost creational personality. There are situations and moments which quite especially bring the requirement that you do not abandon yourself. Do not abandon yourself. Even when everyone else abandons you. So now, you don't fall into the dumps. Don't start thinking, oh, poor pitiful me, or oh this, or oh that. Do not abandon yourself. There are situations and moments in which your own dealings with yourself, your dealings with your own I, are the only ones which are still comforting, and the only valuable ones which you do not hold, which not only hold you above the water, rather which enable you to fight for the life and the continuation of the life. So when things get really bad, your inner friend, your spirit form, is the one that's going to enable you to fight for life, to hold you. How did he put it here? Let me read this. Hold you above the water. So the analogy is you're drowning, so to speak, in the circumstances and the troubles of your life. Well, that's when you have to depend on your inner friend. Therefore, you must not oppress yourself through self-chastisement or self-abuse. So this book that I seem to be coming back to today is so down to earth. And it coincides with what Emmanuel was teaching. Okay? Emmanuel is the reincarnation of the spirit form of Nocodamian. Edward Albert Meyer is the reincarnation of the spirit form of Nocodamian. It's important to remember about the universal prophet. Every universe brings forth a universal prophet who is repeatedly materializing again and again as a human being to help our humankind speeding up our evolution. The Nocadamian spirit form came back out of a completely spiritual plane called Arahatathvasata. We know that he lived at one point on a planet named Sadar, some 3 billion light years from Earth in the Lyran galaxy. So 9.6 billion years ago, this spirit existed. He incarnated as Henok with a K 8 billion years ago. On Earth as Semyasa 389,000 years ago, and then Semyasa again is about 14,000 years. There were 3 incarnations of Henok with a CH. Again, this is a universal prophet. He came 13,500 years ago, 9,000 years ago, 4,000 to 5,000 years ago. And then he was Elijah in 891 BC, Isaiah in 772 BC, Jeremiah in 662 BC. Then as Socrates in 469 BC, Aristotle in 384 BC, Emmanuel in 2 BC, Mohammed in 571 AD, Johann Georg Faust in 1480 AD, Galileo in 1564 AD, Mozart in 1746 AD, Mendelssohn in 809 AD, Rasputin in 1860, then Billy Edward Albert Meyer in 1937. This is the spiritual reincarnations of the spirit form of Nocadamia. I want to read a little something, just briefly, because we're running a little bit low on time. And this talks a little bit about the spirit form and about our reincarnation. And there are 7 stages to our evolution. So you evolve over all of these reincarnations. We take 40 to 60 million years of reincarnations in the first 5 stages of evolution. We spend about 18 million years in a physical body with all these different personalities and all these different times and all these different ages. And for those 18 million years in the physical body, we have about 42 million years in the spirit realm, where the spirit form is evaluating and understanding everything that you learned in your life and storing that information in your spirit form, getting ready for the next physical reincarnation. And those 5 stages are called primitive life, rational life, intelligent life, real life, and life in creational wisdom. Now in your 6th stage of incarnation, the 6th stage of evolution that human beings are in. By the way, we here on Earth, we're in the 2nd stage I talked about, rational life. We're talking about far into the future. We will go into this half spiritual and half material stage. It's stage 6, and we'll spend about 56 million years there. During this time, the spirit form evolves into the half spirit level, into what's called the high council. It's a wavering half spiritual, half material form, and then we spend about 56 million years in this half spiritual, half material form. I'm not sure that it's possible to, in the material world, to encounter these kind of beings. Maybe it's possible, I don't know. Don't know much about that other than what I've just said here. So in the 7th stage, we go into this purely spiritual state. So we don't have a physical body anymore, no more. And we spend about 364 million years in a purely spiritual state. And there are 7 stages of evolution in this spiritual state. And the universal prophet was at the first level of there when he had to come back to the physical as the universal prophet. So, and these levels include Arhatathrasata, the Lantano level, the Absali level, the Dharman level, the Euchre level, the Logan level, the Patali level. So the 7 main levels each are to be calculated with the time for the spirit form of 52 million years. So we spend about 52 million years in each one of these levels. There are 7 levels. And so we spend a lot of time there. Let's just say that. 364 million years, that's 7 times 52 million. 7 spiritual stages, we spend 52 million years. So we're spending the greatest amount of time in this purely spiritual level. And then finally, we go through this humongously long period of merging with creation. It takes about 2,538,200,000 years to merge with creation. So this is what the Maya material says about your future. So if you feel like you're not very learned and you're not doing so well in life and you're still struggling, know well into the future that you will be a very wise spirit form. It's just a matter of incarnations. This is all it is. And learn to trust your spirit within you. And that's one of the things that the teaching of Emmanuel is teaching us. For where your treasure is, there will your heart also be. And the true treasure is wisdom and knowledge. And the eye is the light of your body. If your eye is clear, your whole body will be filled with light. But if your eye is evil, your whole body will be dark. If the light within you is dark, how great will that darkness be? No one can serve 2 masters. Either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will adhere to one and despise the other. You cannot serve your spirit and mammon, so I guess mammon would be money. Therefore, I say to you, be concerned about the knowledge of your spirit. For are not the spirit, life, and body more important than all the treasures of the world? So he's saying, be concerned about the knowledge of your spirit, as well as your body and food and drink. Without the body, the human spirit, which is thirsting for truth and knowledge, is incapable of preserving earthly life. Because the body and the spirit are one, and I remember that. It's very, very interesting the way Emmanuel said that. The body and the spirit are one. Thus you should be concerned about increasing the knowledge of your spirit, about the laws of life and food, drink, and clothing for your body. So the body and the spirit are one. This is very, very fascinating information from the Talmud of Emmanuel. I'm reading the old version, not the new improved version. Someday I'll get off my duff and order the new version. I appreciate everyone that's been listening to this show. We'll be back on tomorrow again, and you can catch up on the older shows. There's a ton of them. You've been listening to Ohio Exopolitics. Google Ohio Exopolitics. You'll be able to find it. My name is Mark Snyder. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. Have a great day.